Hey everyone, I'm going to be taking a look at my 1970 Seiko World Time watch. And I'm using my new macro lens on the GoPro today, so let's see if that makes any difference. Now, I'll begin by saying I don't know a ton about watches. I do know a bit about this watch because I researched it pretty heavily before I bought one, and I first came across this watch when I was checking out a watch show. I was looking at other Seiko watches and this watch repairman on YouTube, and he was talking about an error bezel version of the World Time. And so obviously I was very curious about, errors and whatnot. And it turns out this particular watch, but there isn't actually an error bezel on it at all. I could just pop this pin out. That would be, oh, maybe it's this pin I want to pop out. Yes, okay. And so we'll look at that in a second, but there isn't actually an error bezel on this watch. It's a kind of a neat little bit of history here. So let's see what that macro lens is capable of doing. I don't believe a GoPro has an active focus, so I've got to kind of hold it just right and hopefully not get a lot of lens glare. But the thing is, what they call the error bezel is a misnomer, because it does not have an error. And what that is London is not on GMT time. And that was something that actually happened in London, or I should say in England, a policy that changed. I think it was sometime in 1969. It's kind of an experiment. They actually changed their own time zone to an hour ahead, and they discontinued this, I think it was somewhere around October 1970. And so Seiko, being pretty on the ball, shifted their world times accordingly. So if we look at the serial number, Seiko serial numbers are pretty easy to read, as long as you have some context. But this is 01, so O is 1970, 1 is January. So this is from January 1970, which would have been the time period in which London was 1 hour ahead of GMT. Alright, so the only reason why I'm actually doing this is because I wanted to change the gasket. I bought this watch, oh boy, I think it was 2020, and then I finally got it delivered 2021. And it's cost me a pretty penny. Almost cost me as much to ship it here as it cost me to buy it. But it sat in a safe for 20 years. And this is the second time I've taken it apart. I took apart the back so I could see what size gasket I needed. I knew that the gasket was going to be hardened. So I did want to change that so that it can continue to be water resistant. This was back also in 1970. Seiko will start changing over the waterproof mark to water resistant mark. But I was happy to see that there's very little damage or anything in here. There's not a lot of rubbing, and I've been wearing this actively as a daily watch for the last year. I think I want to put it this way. It doesn't have a typical horizontal winder, so that looks good. Let's put it this way. Alright, so I was really happy to see there's not a lot of wear, if any. I actually couldn't find any. There's some gunk and pitting here that I can clean up afterwards, but there's no springiness to the winder. The discs are all really solid. You don't see any rubbing marks. There's no friction going on. So the inside looks like it's in beautiful shape. Not taking it apart, who knows what's underneath, but I'm assuming it's also just as good if it's sat in a safe for 20 years. So happy to see that. Now the issue I have, as I said, I don't know much about watches, is what size is this gasket? It's a little bit deformed, and I don't know what the size is exactly. So I ended up buying 3 sizes. So bear with me here as I guess the size. I'm going to start with this 30 centimeter gasket. And I guess the next big question is, where does a gasket go? I think I want to put it on the outside of the cover. Alright, so 30 is too big, so we'll try 29. Because the deformed one is all bunch shaped and whatnot. So it was hard to measure that, and I ended up just measuring the cover and taking a guess. So I bought 30, I bought 29. Watch it be like 28. Actually, it might be 29. This might work. I could just get it on there. Mission accomplished. So it's a 29 millimeter gasket. Alright, so there we go. The new gasket is on there. What I'll do is I'll clean up this gunk in a moment, and then we'll put her back together. Alright, so I cleaned it up a bit. I winded it a tiny bit so you can see it going. But just looking at this again, even the writing, the etching of Seiko and 17 jewels in here is so crisp and clean. I really am happy how the inside of this watch looks. One thing I am curious though, and I'm kind of wondering is this macro lens worth it? But we'll find out. Alright, so we got a brand new gasket on there. Now I also got one of these tools. I'm going to back this camera up. One of these watch tightening tools, and I don't know how I feel about it. I mean, it got the job done, but it also has metal tips. So I know that they have some plastic ones, and some people use like almost like a blue tack back to kind of screw and unscrew watch cases. So I don't know. I'm still undecided. So I think the next thing what I want to do before I put my pin back in for the band is just to check out, is this macro lens worth it or not? So here's the watch with the macro. And there does come a point where it really doesn't focus anymore. I can see that, so it looks like it's about... And I wonder if it does worse or better with less light or more light. Look at that, you can still see the lume is still good on this. I would say about there. So yeah, you can see it's going again. At one point I would like to have it, you know, professionally cleaned and looked at, but for now it seems to be really working well. I don't have any issues, nothing sticking. And it's the original band too. One thing I did was I tried to hunt down, I really like the look of this band. Whenever you try to search for these, almost always the band is gone. So this one actually came with the original band. Alright, so let's test out the regular GoPro lens. Okay, and we're back to the regular GoPro lens. I don't know, can you... Well, I will say it doesn't seem... I don't think I can focus on it at all. So maybe the macro does actually do something. I think this is... I can't read anything. So actually, maybe the macro does do something. Let's take a second look at it. Oh yeah, look at that. I can already see it magnified. Alright, that's cool. So this is a 5x or 15x macro. So we can get pretty close. We can get about there, I think, and still read it. All right. Well, then I'm happy. So what I'll do now is I'll put the pin back in and we're done. We're good to go. Set the time, which is 7:07. And it's the 9th. One thing I do want to do is I do want to do this gingerly. It is hard to believe, but it is 52 years old. "52 and a half years old." So we do. And today's the 9th. But let's set the hour hand first, just in case that changes the day. Nope. All right. Yeah, another thing I'm happy with is that the lume is still good. You can pretty much tell that the front has stayed watertight. Sometimes over the years, there's actually a gasket on the front as well, between the glass and the case, and that will go bad. And then you get a lot of like discoloring inside the lume, kind of, I don't want to say it's molds, but it gets kind of cakey, and then can also peel off if it gets moist inside. Alright, that's the time. So let's check out that lume again. It's hard to make it dark enough in here, but I think you get the gist here. So, yeah, I love this watch. It's a cool piece of history. It's got that 70s, you know, sleek design casing. It's not too big or ostentatious. Doesn't really stick out much. Everything's original on it, except now the gasket I just replaced. But I'm very happy with it. So that's it. That's the 1970 Seiko World Time.